Basically, we've got an extra topic around the transit authority's grant application. Kind of shuffled a couple things around. Transportation Director Jeff Fansler is joining us today, so I want to get him talking early on so he can drop off if he needs to. And then we are welcoming a new member today, Lisa Blythe. Hello, nice to have you. So I thought what would be good is to just do a quick round of introductions. Your name, maybe when you joined the committee, or if you're a staff person, what's your role there. We'll try to keep it brief, but if everybody can just go around, I'll start us off and kind of tap on someone else, and you can kind of pass it on to someone else. So Amy Easter, I've been on the committee, I don't know, a couple years. And I'm affiliated with Beers and Gears and the Forsyth Office Association. So I also love to walk and hike. And I'll send it over to Greg.
Hey, good afternoon. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the committee. I'm Greg Garrett. I'm a member of the Creative Corridors Coalition, as well as the Bike Ped group. And I've been involved with bike and pedestrian planning in my professional career when I worked for the city of Winston-Salem starting in 1985. So I've been involved one way or another with bicycle and pedestrian planning for a good long while. And some of the previous versions of this committee that existed 20, 30 years ago. So I'm sort of a hanger-on here, I guess, a little bit. But welcome to the committee, and looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Turn on my mic. Okay, my name is John Gunkel. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the committee. I've been on it, I think, about a year and a half, somewhere along in there. Previously, I was with the Recreation and Parks Commission. I'm an avid cyclist, and I enjoy basically working with this group, trying to improve the overall infrastructure. Oh, okay. Ryan, you're up.
Hello. I have no idea if my mic's good. Can y'all hear me? All right. I'm fighting a new kid I just found, so let me get to it. I'm Ryan. I've been on since last year of August. I work at Wake Forest Medical Center. I commute strictly by e-bike, and I run a nonprofit called Alternative Commuting, basically streamlining people who have questions about personal electric vehicles, because that stuff's real confusing. So I try to make it easy. I think that's a general summary. I won't rant too long. Nice to meet y'all, or you, Lisa. Sorry.
Well, I can go now, if that works. Can you hear me? Thank you, guys. I'm Lisa. First meeting. I live downtown, actually, on 4th Street, and I volunteer with Sarah at Bookmarks. So I thought you looked familiar. I'm like, hey, that's Sarah. I haven't been volunteering lately much, though, but I work remotely from my apartment here on 4th Street, and I love to bicycle and walk all over the place. And have had some hazardous experiences walking and biking all over the place. I've been in Winston-Salem almost 2 years now. I moved up from Florida. So I'm really excited to be part of the committee.
We're excited to have you. Thank you for joining.
And I did talk to Carol before she went to Norway, and we are going to meet up, just her and I, again, we're going to walk just in a couple weeks just to say hi and get to know her. So, yeah.
Yeah, she's the best. You'll love her. Well, Sarah, we heard your name. How about you go next?
Sure. Although Lisa does know me, I'm Sarah Blanton. I am new to this committee this year, so a couple of months ago, I think, and new-ish to Winston-Salem. I think this is year 5, almost year 6 for me. And then I do work at Bookmarks.
All right, I'm just going to volunteer people. How about going down on my list here? How about Michael Hosey? Are you out there, Michael? You're on mute if you're talking.
I wasn't talking. My phone was, or my computer was going in and out. But welcome to the committee, Lisa. Welcome to Winston-Salem. I'm not originally from here, but I've been here about 13 years, and I've definitely adopted Winston as my home and love it here. I'm associated with the National Cycling Center and get to be involved with a bunch of bicycle initiatives here in town. And I've been on the committee, I believe, since 2020, since the beginning. And yeah, just good to see you, good to meet you, and look forward to working with you.
Awesome. How about Cynthia?
Hi. We moved to Winston-Salem 10 years ago. I'm originally from California. Used to compete in triathlons and biking events all the time. Then we moved here and had some rough encounters and actually got away from bicycling. And so I love to bike, I love to hike and walk, and finding out about this committee was really interesting to me because I'm interested in improving the pedestrian infrastructure so we can get out there more. And I just joined the committee again a month ago.
Awesome. How about, I think that was most of our committee members. We've got some staff and other folks joining. Ben, you want to do an intro?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Ben Wilbur. I'm the Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator here at Winston-Salem DOT, and I help support this committee any way I can and organize meetings and help you guys all out. So welcome, Lisa.
Yes, we love Ben. Appreciate all you do. How about Larry?
Larry might just be recording. He might.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, we appreciate Larry too. Kyle?
Hi, folks. I'm Kyle Laird with the Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation. So I'm a transit planner, and pedestrian and cycling safety and infrastructure is very important to us. So glad to be here.
We appreciate you joining. All right. We've got Jeff here, and I'll let him introduce himself in a minute, but was there anyone else that didn't get to speak? Okay, great. All right, well, we have the pleasure of having Director Fansler with us, and I think you have the floor to speak about whatever you want, but I have here on the agenda that you were going to talk a little bit about the celebration for the Salem Parkway multi-use path, and maybe general updates on construction. I saw the flyover bridge was like starting to come into place, very exciting. So we're happy to have you. If you want to do any intro, just whatever you have to share with us.
Thank you, Amy, and good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Jeff Fansler, Director of Transportation for the City of Winston-Salem, which is a fancy way of saying I support Ben and all the good work he does, and nothing else really. So I appreciate Ben, his work on the team. Appreciate all of your commitment to moving all modes of transportation forward in our city. Okay, and I'm serious about that. But a couple updates. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today briefly. There's a lot going on. So if you do not know all the efforts going on, everything from comprehensive planning, I know folks in this committee like John are tuned in to comprehensive efforts that are going on. We have, of course, large-scale pedestrian infrastructure projects that are going on, both in construction phase and in final design phase, and even feasibility phase. So there's all kinds of work in this space that we are very passionate about, committed to, and continue pursuing funding to explore in the future. But I'll be brief in my remarks, particularly because if you've been anywhere around Salem Parkway, especially on the south side there, adjacent Liberty Street, you've seen quite a large structure that's being assembled that will house the new multi-use path. And so that is a project, for those that don't know, has been on our books for quite some time. This goes back to when Greg was a city employee and was in the early planning stages of that project. And for the last, I don't know, decade, I have had the pleasure of working very closely with NCDOT, with other city colleagues, with design engineers. And what you see is the product of a lot of work, painstaking effort to develop an east-west corridor separate from traffic within several control access areas. Really unprecedented work in this space. So we were in the final construction window. This project will connect the Strollway, really Liberty Street, over to West 4th Street as phase 1 of the multi-use path. And I'll do a shameless plug. I'm going to charge this committee with coming up with a better name. I know there's been some interest in that, but we can do better than just calling it what we all know it to be. It needs a place in Winston-Salem. And so I'll let you guys have some food for thought on that. But I think, we were fortunate enough to welcome former U.S. Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg to groundbreak and do the groundbreaking on this project. And so I think dutifully, there's a lot of interest in celebrating its completion. And that's what I think we're moving towards. And I'm hopeful that this committee can help with that. From a capacity standpoint, I know Ben and I, we're going to be heavily involved in continuing the actual work of planning, building, designing, and moving infrastructure forward. And if you know me at all, event planning is not my strength. And I'll say that very proudly. So I'm going to ask, and I know with Greg and Amy, and they've dug into this quite a bit already in some planning efforts to think about what we can do to celebrate the completion of the project. So long story, very long story, really a 15-year story, come to a close with the celebration of a ribbon cutting that I'll leave it to this committee to help lead the charge. And then a number of others too need to be involved, and then I've been coordinating with Ben on what that could look like. But I think the bottom line is we're looking at sometime late August where we can have a celebration and cut a ribbon, and then have however we deem appropriate to celebrate the use of this new east-west multimodal facility. We'll put it in your guys' capable hands. But we are looking to celebrate the completion of this project. We are earmarking a couple Friday, Saturdays in late August that I think we have to do some due diligence on to make sure we can make calendars work. But keep that on your radar. I'm going to ask that between Ben and coordinating with this committee, Creative Corridors, City Council, our media outlets, partners, all types of partners downtown that need to be a part of the celebration. I think, and then I'm thinking of Michael as well, National Cycling Center, really need to be a part of what we do here in celebrating the completion of this project. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of planning to be done. What I would ask is you guys brainstorm those options, knowing kind of a target date now in late August. And let's have maybe some concentrated discussions about bringing that to life. What's needed from a sponsorship perspective, what's needed from a council support perspective, city support perspective, but ultimately, how do we tell the story and get our message out of this new facility that the public can use and get the benefit of? So that's a lot of words to say we're excited about a long-term effort, and we want this committee to be a part of that celebration. So I'll let you guys digest that. I think there's a lot of work, Amy, for you, for Chair Carroll, and to dive through what that means and how you can support. And then from there, I would look to see what you guys come back and want to see a community rally behind, and then it's something that we can support. We'd love to do so. So does that answer a lot of what you wanted me to cover with that, Amy?
Yes, absolutely. That's good to know we have a date. It sounds like construction is moving along, which is always wonderful. You never know what kind of delays you might hit, but that's moving along, and that gives us
a good word. We don't talk about that.
Well, sorry. I'm going to jinx it now, aren't I? Anyways, it's great to have a date. We've already made some connections with some key partners. And as you said, a group has been meeting to kind of formulate a map of where things can happen. And so, yes, we'll keep working and connect with, I guess, Ben, and he'll bring things up to you, Jeff, and be thinking about, what support we need from the city and others. I did want to clarify, this event, do we want to do a separate ribbon cutting, or do we want the ribbon cutting to be a part of this event? Or does it matter based on schedules? Because I know sometimes.
I'll tell you this, getting our elected officials to participate in multiple events that have a similar interest may be a challenge. My recommendation that we do something comprehensive, but I'll leave that to your recommendation. Stop asking me event planning questions I don't know the answer to. Okay. Yeah. I really don't know. So I think the more we can concentrate and value their time, probably the better.
Okay. Yep. Wonderful. All right. Did anybody else have any questions or comments? I have been collecting names for the multi-use path from various entities. I almost have a good list. There's a few other really brainy, creative, witty people I'd like to reach out to personally. So hopefully, Jeff, by the end of the month, I can have a list to you, and then you guys can maybe look at that in DOT and see if anything bubbles up. Anything would be better than multi-use path, in my opinion. So
in and I mentioned this just very briefly to Ben, so this is probably going to be brand new, but I think it would be great during some opening remarks from the mayor that we can identify a new community-driven name. So if we're talking at the end of August, ribbon cutting, we need to get real serious real soon, because I would like to roll this through the Public Works Committee the second Tuesday in August, and get their endorsement from Public Works as an information, and then get some of their endorsements that we could then ride behind. So I do think it needs to have some community input prior to that, so we can all feel assured that we've done our due diligence in the community with what this brand will ultimately become. So I'll leave that to you to digest, but that's just, yeah, the sooner I guess we can get that. I'd love to review that list too, but no, we'll be looking to see what community support it has as well.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking if we can come up with a list in the coming weeks, then sometime we could use the month of July to put something out there to the public. I don't know if the city marketing department could do some posts on social media, make it kind of like not a survey, but a poll where people could vote for their favorite. I'm sure the media outlets might pick that up, and just give it 2 or 3 weeks to see what kind of interest there is.
Yeah.
So
Jeff,
I think
this is Greg. I wanted to ask you, our committee had been looking at more in early September for having this celebration that would be outside of the Winston-Salem Dash season, baseball season. And so I guess we had looked at maybe one of the first Saturdays in September, but have you already locked down something that's in August? Is that what you're saying?
Greg, no, we haven't locked anything down. I think it's all subject to scrutiny. The problem is the contract, and I'm hesitant to say this, but they're on a very good pace. And what I think the challenge will be is that we have this delivered, 45 days before we celebrate it, and people are using it, and it's got that new effect may have worn off, because there's going to be a real chance we're not going to be able to hold the contractor. We're not going to keep the facility just closed down when it's complete in late July or right at the 1st of August, when we're going to be really done. At least substantially complete. There'll probably be some punch list work we're working on, but that's the dilemma we're in with the pace the contractor's going, Greg. It's one of those things where the project will be essentially done for several weeks before we celebrate it. So that's just trying to, and if that's the interest of the community, do we really care about that? I don't know.
Okay, all right.
But we're having a good pace with the project. Is why that's the reason for August.
Well, I'm pleased with what I see out there, and it does look like it's moving along very, very quickly, and very happy to see that. And I was just relaying what our subcommittee had been sort of targeting was outside of what the Winston-Salem Dash season encompassed, but I understand what you're saying. So we'll find a good date then for that.
Yeah, great question, Greg. We had done a little bit of our own scheming for timing, but this is a good problem to have, to your point, that it'll be open and ready, but we don't want to delay our celebration too long. So we'll go back and look at the dates. I know Greg researched when the Dash was doing games home and away and stuff, and I'm sure we can find something that'll work for everybody. So
Jeff, how long will the second phase over to Baptist Hospital? What is the general time frame on that? Because if it's going to be still about 2 to 3 years of still doing design and then construction, it seems like having a ribbon cutting, this summer would make more sense to go ahead and do it right as fresh as the project being completed. So that would be my take on that.
Yeah, phase 2 still a ways off. There's tremendous design challenges that nuanced, probably not for this committee, that have delayed that design. Tremendous bridge problems on the other second phase to the hospital. Now, it's not probably 3 years out, but it is probably 18 months out before we have noticeable construction on the ground for that phase 2.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I would raise to you, Jeff, is when a group of us walked the path and what was finished of the path, or where it was going to be a few weeks back, we did identify a few areas of improvement. Some of them as simple as like trimming vegetation that's blocking a pedestrian crossing signal, and that's something I think community members can handle. Or like there's a lot of vote in 2024 posters up on a wall, like that's also something the community could probably do. But there were some other I think, really valuable recommendations. One was some kind of additional pavement marking and or light beacon or something at Brookstown, where the path crosses Brookstown and goes up High Street. And so we identified that as a really important kind of intersection of the path that anything we can do to bring additional visibility to would be great. And so I think, not to put you on the spot, but is that something you think that we can either do a temporary like sidewalk painting project for just the period of time when this celebration is happening? Or do you think the city has the means between now and then to do something a little more permanent? And I'm thinking like what's between Renolda and Grayland Estates on Renolda, that really great crossing thing. So just wondering what's the feasibility of that kind of improvement or anything to make that area visible.
Amy, are you talking about the crossing of Brookstown or?
Yeah, Brookstown. You go underneath the bridge for 14 and go up High Street.
Yeah, we're looking at that as well. I think we would support something that's not temporary. So let's look at this more comprehensively as a permanent treatment. So yes, let Ben and I look at that, and maybe we can pitch some recommendations to this committee to have your consideration on that. But I'll need to check with traffic engineering to see what their thoughts are. And I'm frank, I don't recall off the top of my head what the treatment is as we wrap up the actual project designating that as a crossing. So let me check on those things and come back to the committee with recommendations that you guys can weigh in on.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, there is curb cuts. So that is the, I think.
Yeah.
The path.
Yeah, it's a formal trail crossing. Yeah, and so we need to designate it as such.
Yeah, and I would only other thing would say is if you're coming from, I guess, the south on Brookstown, it's a bit of a curve, and so it could be hard to see someone if they're right in the middle of the street crossing. And so any kind of flashing light beacon would help too. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing about that particular intersection there, because you're coming, at least if you're coming from like the Wake Forest health area, you come down that ramp, you get going pretty fast. There needs to be something there that people know that they need to slow down, because I've been out there and I've seen a lot of skid marks near the bottom. So I mean, I think it's kind of safety is I think it's important there, so people don't just all of a sudden end out in the street unexpectedly.
Yeah, that was another one of the areas we called out, and I don't know if I put it in that little summary document. It's in the map. If anybody peeked at the little map that we put together, and I can maybe just resurface that to the committee. But yes, that was another area that was like, if we can put some kind of planter there, or at least a sign that says steep hill, stop at the bottom, something, because it is a bit of a, steep downhill coming right into a road, which I'll say down is not, thankfully, a super busy road, but it's busy enough that, something could happen. So that's a great.
We all noted. Yep, we're looking exactly. We're on the same page. Let me consider all those, both the Brookstown crossing and that downhill section where you're climbing it or exiting from that hill onto Brookstown. Let me look at those two areas.
Perfect.
Real quick, just that same area, there could be some kind of signage or something for pedestrians walking up the road. That way they don't just step out in front of the trail as well, because they probably would have no idea that there's a trail path there, or they may or may not. But that's while we're thinking about it, let's just think about all angles.
Yeah, and there is some trail crossing signage as part of our project. We'll make sure that all that's properly deployed. But I think supplementing that, both for vehicle modes and for pedestrian modes, need to be considered. So we got to look at the crossing of Brookstown where the trail formally crosses, and where the trail kind of makes that dog leg at Brookstown where it turns before it crosses. So we'll look at those two areas really on both sides of the parkway where the trail crosses.
Yeah, I'm just wondering too if like one of those I'd call them like a gas station mirror. I don't know. They're like the rounded mirrors. You see them on like decks so that you can see around corners and stuff. I wonder if one of those could be installed. I'm sure it would probably get vandalized at some point, but it's worth it if it helps safety even once. So
fair enough. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, lots of great feedback. If folks have other thoughts, please let Ben know, let me know. We can continue to discuss. I think the more we have in place for the celebration, the better. But obviously we'll work iteratively over time to make any improvements we can. So
Amy, I'm wondering whether, that might be something that'd be candidate for a stop condition there. Maybe in both directions on Brookstown there, but just a thought.
Thank you, Greg. That's a tough one. There are some treatments that we'll definitely consider, stop being one of them, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me look at the plans. I owe you guys a response on how we're crossing there, because some of that's been identified formally with the trail design.
Yeah.
But supplementing that, let me consider that with the team.
Okay.
Perfect.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff.
And Amy, I know you put some groups together that you have in mind for the event. So I'll work with you to I'm trying to get a stakeholder list together and hopefully send out some dates for people pretty soon. But if anyone else has other groups in mind, please let me know.
Yeah. And I was looking at the dash schedule while I was here. They have a quite extensive homestand from the 12th of August through the 24th of August. So that leaves the week of the 25th to consider something, because they have another homestand the first week of September. And at that point, the trail will be open probably 3 or 4 weeks if we push it up past that September homestand. So
yeah,
all things trying to balance out. That week of the 25th is a Monday. That week of the 25th, 26th, or 7th, even looking at the 29th or 30th, Friday, Saturday, would probably be our best window. Just consider those things, but we'll probably float out some dates. We need to run that by our elected officials about their availability, and then we'll get a consensus.
great.
Excellent.
Well, Jeff, I know you're a very busy man, so.
Amy, can I talk briefly about the request for a letter of support for our transit low-no application for FY25?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, one of the things that the City of Winston-Salem pursued in FY24 was the US DOT's discretionary grant program for our low or no emission fixed route bus, or really bus facilities. So it's a 5339 grant from FTA discretionary that the City of Winston-Salem did apply for successfully in FY24, did receive funding for 5 new fixed route buses, hybrid electric. And I'm happy to say the city has stood tall and funded the local match for us to continue pursuing that in FY25. Now that USDOT has once again issued that notice of funding opportunity. So all that to say, we are in the middle of the deadline. I think it's about to end here really soon. I've got to check on that. But we have drafted our application again, and we have requested a number of letters of support through a number of our member agencies, all partners downtown in a lot of different spaces. And once again, we're asking for formal support from this committee in the pursuit of the city's application for 5 more buses through the FY25 round of the low-no discretionary grant opportunity through FTA. So just a note to say before you today is an action item to consider endorsing that letter of support that will be signed by Chair Hoover, and will will supplement our application for 5 new fixed route hybrid electric buses that the city will apply for with this round of funding. So any thoughts, questions, I'm happy to take those, but we would ask for your support formally via that letter of support. Thank you, Amy.
Yes, definitely. That's a great initiative. And no, Kyle's like, yes, please, let's do more of that. I did want to clarify, because Carol sent this to us as a committee on May 30th. So if y'all check your email, you should see that. I got the impression, in addition to the committee's letter of support, it might be valuable to have individual constituents advocating for this. Is that accurate, or is the focus mostly to get the BPAMIC to do a letter of support?
Yeah, from my understanding of the NOFO, there is not specific to how you generate letters of support. And last time we flooded them with all flavors of letters of support. And as I mentioned, we were successful. So we are really repeating the same recipe we used last time. Our narrative has been updated to meet the current administration's indicated priorities. And I think we have a very strong application once again. But as far as letters of support, Amy, we'll take them however you want to get them to us, because we were successful last time. We're not going to shut that door to anybody that wishes to support.
Wonderful. So I would point you all back to the email. They are due, looks like business day today says. So if y'all, before you go to sleep tonight, maybe we'll have.
We'll take it tomorrow if you're interested.
Today or tomorrow, if you want to write a personal letter, Carol put some information already in here. I imagine you could just literally copy and paste that and sign your name at the bottom. But if you wanted to tailor it to a specific need you have, request, desire, whatever. But I would like to ask the committee if there would be a motion to approve the letter as Carol presented it, that she would sign on behalf of the BPAMIC. So is anybody interested in moving that forward?
I'll be happy to initiate a motion for that. This is Greg.
Okay. Would there be a second?
I'll second it. This is Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy. All right, any discussion, questions? Okay, do we need to do a roll call, Ben, or can we just do all in favor? Yay.
We can do all in favor.
Okay, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Great. Anyone opposed? Okay, perfect. And I think, Ben, you have a copy of that signed letter ready to submit to Jeff. Carol handled it.
That's correct.
We just needed
Yep.
to approve it before we submitted it, so. Awesome. Okay, thank you, committee, and thank you, Jeff, for bringing that up. We definitely want to support more buses and anything to improve the efficiency and access for transit.
Thank you, Amy, and I respect your time. I'll hop off, and if anything that comes out of this that I can answer further, please let Ben know and we'll follow up. Otherwise, we'll be looking for some recommendations from this committee on how we celebrate the project. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
All right, good deal. We'll move along to a couple other action items, get those taken care of, and then we can talk through some updates. We've got the April 9th meeting minutes that were sent out via email, I think, with the agenda and stuff. Ben, do you want those one by one, or can we also do those by consensus approval? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm muted. We can do consensus approval for those as well.
Wonderful. Okay, so hopefully everyone's reviewed those meeting minutes. Lisa, I know you weren't there and you weren't on the committee yet, so you don't need to worry about this one. But would there be a motion to approve the April meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Greg, John, I saw you raise your hand. Would you like to second? Okay, cool. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Great. Anyone opposed to the April minutes? Okay, those are approved. Next we have a review in, oh, sorry, was there something? And I do see in the chat that Greg, you submitted one, a letter, so thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
John, would love for you to spend a little bit of time walking the committee through the proposed Green Bay infrastructure design standards that the PPP working group has been working on. I don't know that there was a formal action item to approve these per se, but definitely want to get the committee's input. And Ben, what do we have Ben and or John, do we have an action item for this committee? Are we looking to approve these recommendations at today's meeting?
Well, that was one of the questions I had. What would be the next step? I don't know if Ben's reviewed these, but I think it'd be good for him to review them as well as us and make a recommendation. I don't know if Ben's reviewed them yet, but
I've gotten a chance to look at them. I haven't done a comprehensive review and discussed with staff. I think, Amy, it would be good to get feedback from other committee members this meeting and then do another action item.
And do another action item at another meeting to
for final approval.
To move them up. Okay, that sounds good. So John, the materials were sent out via an email. I think they were attached and there was a link. So John, if you want to share your screen, you can. Otherwise, folks should have access to those documents. But if you want to just walk us through what you guys have.
Yeah, just a little background. I think it was a year ago, Carol's team, which included me and Tyler, Greg, and Mason, kind of figure out what we're going to work on next. And the idea of the Greenway standards kind of bubbled up. Just some background. we don't really have any formal greenway standards. I think the 2012 Greenway Plan update has suggested that we develop some at some point. So this is our pass at developing some. So what we did was we thought, okay, we'll survey some other municipalities, organizations that have developed standards. So we divvied it up, and everybody took, a city or whatever, and basically researched it. And so what we did is we created this big spreadsheet with the standards from about 7 or so cities. It included Asheville, Charlotte, Durham, Zebulon, Wilmington, and also the East Coast Greenway. So we put together this spreadsheet, and basically, obviously they all had different standards. And what we did is we basically pulled out standards we thought that were meaningful for us, and basically tried to rationalize which kind of standard we wanted to use, because there was lots of different approaches to it. So what we ended up with is 19 standards that are in the document. Basically, some of the major categories, which basically describe the surface of the path, the slope, the gradient, the rate of curvature on the paths, dealt with trailheads, trail crossings, bridges, tunnels, boardwalks, lighting, and signage. Now, when we put together these, we didn't want to make the standards so tight that, people, or so expensive that, we would have no bike path instead of having, at least something. So there is some wiggle room when it's needed to be. I mean, there's things will come up, or something, you can't do it like your standards say, so you have to have a workaround. So we try to include a lot of that. So the document describes each of the standards. We referenced a lot of, like AASHTO, NATCO, NCDTOT, ADA, organizations where they have their standards. So we would say maybe per their standards. So we tried to use a lot of their standards where we could. So I'm not going to go through that in detail. You guys can look at it. But is there any questions about what we did, why we did it, how we did it? Okay. So in terms of next steps, so Ben, you're going to have your folks look at it. Is that the way I understood it?
That's correct. Yeah, I'll get feedback from, because we have with our greenways, 3 different departments involved.
Right.
Rec and Parks, our engineering department, and then us at DOT, who all kind of have a role in greenway development and greenway maintenance. So I think it would be really good to get their perspective as well.
Yeah, sure. Okay, then we'll bring it back and have another discussion about them.
Greg, God, sorry, John. I'm gonna blame it on Mom.
Right, Greg and I look a lot alike. So.
I don't know. You're just both very dignified, wise men. I don't know. One thing I didn't see, and I'm looking through this after not looking at it for a while, but was there any specific call out for including signage?
Yes, there is a signage.
Is that under trailhead?
No, it's on the second page. It's like fourth from the bottom, signage.
Oh, I didn't scroll down to the second page yet. So.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Of course, y'all covered that. Thank you. The only other thing was under trailhead, it says new developments adjacent to the Greenway trail system must include at least one Greenway trailhead. 100% agree with that. Wondering if that's not just necessarily part of the standards, but if that needs to be a UDO, part of the Unified Development Ordinance. And Ben, is that your understanding? Like that it would have to go to the planning board to be adopted as a thing we require from new developments, right?
That's correct, yeah, and they'll look at, kind of how that's going to impact the cost of development and other kind of concerns they have, and just logistically getting those connections made. So yeah, their input will be important for that.
Yeah, no, I 100% support that one. I think it's really, really, really important, and it's very vital to making greenways accessible and not just a place you drive to and then use, like making it accessible to people in neighborhoods and stuff. But I just want to call out that one's not just like a easy peasy. These are our standards. Like we'd have to do a little extra work there. But this looks really great. I'm really excited that you all did this comprehensive work to review what others are doing and come up with this list. So
yeah, it was a real mixed bag. I mean, some places did very, very little, others did a whole lot. I mean, the little town of Zebulon had a really nice document that they put together. It's amazing.
Sometimes those
Yeah,
small
John.
that are redeveloping, reimagining themselves are doing amazing things, better than some of the big cities, in my observation.
Yeah, they had pictures, diagrams. It was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, John, thanks for doing the research. We definitely see value in adopting some kind of a minimum standard, but a lot of our trails, we look at a lot of different factors when constructing trails, and just constraints, corridor constraints, and then types of users that will be on the trail and surrounding land use. So just we definitely see value in like a baseline standard.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm the new person, but so in these situations, is there, and maybe I'm missing it looking at this, but a requirement for pedestrian or bike parking or pedestrian seating along the trail?
Well, that's a good point. We didn't include it in this particular document, but that is a good point. We never even thought about that. Maybe that's something we should include.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious what other communities are doing. With our projects, we try to, when there's a destination nearby the trail, we try to incorporate bicycle parking and seating and other amenities. But we don't really have a formal standard on. It's kind of on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, the ones we looked at, I don't remember ever seeing that. I mean, we saw that, we said, oh yeah, we need to do that, but we didn't see it. So that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of this one where I was living in Gainesville, Florida, and we had this pretty long trail it was probably 40 miles. And along it, like certain footage, I mean, I don't know how far, but there was seating, pet waste stations, that sort of thing, and trail parking. And so that's just kind of what made me think of it. Because when you go a long way, you get tired.
Yeah.
Or at least old people like me.
Yeah, that's Lisa, great point. I think I would recommend that be something we add to the list before it goes over to this city for review. Now what the distance is, I don't know. I mean, John, if it didn't come up in your all's research, I don't expect you to come up with a arbitrary distance, but if we could at least put it out to the city that we do think, seating and bike parking should be incorporated somewhere, maybe the city can come up with a recommendation for what's the appropriate. Is it a quarter mile? Is it whatever, Great point. Any other questions or comments on these standards?
Yes, it might be in here, the kind of those safety.
Well, I don't know if it's
emergencies. Yeah,
is it still breaking up for
that's in
other,
there.
or is it just me?
Does that make sense?
You're breaking up. I can't understand you.
It's really me. No worries.
You want to throw it in the chat? I don't know, or maybe try turning off your video and just doing audio. Sometimes, I don't know, the internet gets overwhelmed, but definitely would love your feedback.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was just saying, like the safety
Break it up again.
Yeah.
All right, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you. Dang, technology not working. Any others? We'll keep an eye out for Michael's input in the chat. Okay. Well, if someone thinks of something in the middle of the night or next week, get it to John, and he can help shepherd that. Safety stations, phones in case of emergency. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It would be interesting. I don't know if there's Greg, maybe you would know. You've been here a while. I believe it's similar. Who developed the Long Branch Trail? Because the Long Branch Trail definitely seems to have seating, lighting, bench, shade, the security stations. Like, what was their thought behind it? Was it just like, ooh, this is a great spot, let's throw one there? Or if they had a standard they were following? Do you know, Greg, or anybody else?
I don't know that they had a standard. It was Stimmel that did a lot of that design work. I do know that. And I think it was really done in coordination with the Innovation Corridor and Wake Forest University as to what they wanted as far as amenities, particularly in the core area there. But I don't know if they had a standard. I think it was just something that they determined needs and went ahead and designed them in. So that's really about all I can say about it. I don't know that they had a specific set of design standards that they had to have benches every 100 yards or something like that. But I think they just looked at it as an overall system there that went through their campus and where it would be convenient and make the most sense to have those amenities there.
Yep.
Yeah, Amy, they did have some standards, and we have all that information. I just can't think of it off the top of my head, but
Okay.
those standards are going to be consistent with the extension too. So I know there's standards for, emergency call boxes at certain intervals, a couple hundred feet, I think, lighting intervals, stuff like that. And then the benches and trash cans have been placed more, where there's shade, or also just at a trailhead or a spur connection.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Trash cans would be another one. So those are all good additions. I think if we can put those in there. One thing I would note on the safety station or whatever you call those is, like, I'm sure they do require certain power, or there's a technology requirement there. And so I don't know if it makes sense to make that part of the required minimum standard, or if that's like a, when feasible, implement safety stations. I defer to others if there's a feeling on that. But more than just a one-time install of a bench, those stations have to be routinely monitored, and they have to have power and other stuff. So definitely worth doing, but I don't know if it would make it for every greenway, or maybe
Yeah,
we
Amy,
should if it's there for every greenway.
some of that came about from our public input meetings. So with the Long Branch Trail, there was a lot of emphasis on safety, which is why those call boxes were incorporated at a fairly solid interval. But other greenway corridors might be different, and people might see different needs. So,
Do you know if landscaping is included in the pathways and the greenways, or is that something that's done separately from the greenways? Like the city does the landscaping separate?
on the Long Branch Trail extension, landscaping is incorporated in most trails. Most greenways have some kind of landscape element. But yeah, with the Long Branch Trail, the desire is kind of to match the southern section of the trail that's already built. We're also trying to incorporate some native landscaping as well.
Okay, that was my concern, is native landscaping and native trees.
Yeah, lots of Hosey's on a roll here. So we got lots of other good ideas.
That bike repair station, we were up in New Jersey, and the trails up there, I forgot the area we were at near an old military base, but it was really neat to see the bike repair stations next to garbage cans and benches on the trail.
Yep. So I think one thing that might need to be determined, and I don't know how this works, is like what, like I said, what falls under a standard like requirement and what is a as feasible as often as possible. How does the city interpret stuff like that when it comes to transportation projects? So I'd be interested in learning how that's determined and what these standards aim to do. Are we aiming to do the baseline? Like this is the minimum, you really have to do this for any new greenway development? And or do we want to also say these are the additional amenities that we think would be valuable? So love the input from the city on that and y'all's working group. So
Yeah, Carol,
Yeah,
I mean, we did talk about not the specific new things we've added, but in general, you know, that would be sometimes a consideration because, you know, for example, if you have to put, you know, safety stations, you know, on a 40-mile greenway, you may not, you know, if it's mandatory, you know, that may really slow down the project. So I think we put a lot of these things in the consideration category, you know, and I guess Ben figures out, you know, when really to apply and when not, depending on the situation.
mm-hmm.
yeah, Amy, I mean, it can be tricky to, you know, obviously we want to do as much as we can, but limited resources, you know, sometimes we can't do everything. But a lot of those things would depend on like, you know, user volumes. Like if we look at the multi-use path, you know, it's 14 feet wide, that bridge out there, and that's, you know, wider than we might go on other paths, but there's a good need for it because it's a urban area, potentially getting a lot of use. So just kind of depends on what kind of we want to see with the trail achieved, kind of.
So it sounds like we got some really great feedback. Appreciate everyone's input. Maybe we will bring this back to our next meeting, just based on, see if there's any updates both from the working group and from the city staff perspective. And then if we can come to some kind of formalized, this is our recommendation, we'll vote to submit that to whatever department, council, entity is supposed to get it. So. But great discussion, great ideas. I think these are the types of things that are great to come out of our committee because it sets the standards for the future and making things better like we all want. So appreciate the working group heading that up. All right, so we got a few more things. We're near 5 o'clock. Most of these are just updates, so hopefully they won't take too long. I'm supposed to let you guys know about the budget letter that we submitted for council. We put that in front of Director Fansler to review, and initially ultimately determined that our timing is just not ideal. The budget is being finalized, and our letter, as wonderful as it is not likely to make a huge impact on what has been determined for the 2025-2026 budget. So what I think Carol and I and Michael and Ben discussed at a meeting was working this fall to kind of initiate what kind of budget things we would like to see for the next budget year, and start talking to council members, city staff, community partners, whoever, to talk about that like earlier on so that it's part of the department's consciousness. Because what I think happens with the budget is each department kind of puts in their stuff, their recommendations, council has their input, and then by the time it gets to public review, it's already been kind of like formulated and there's a lot less wiggle room. So I think that'll be an effort we kind of touch on this fall. So I hope that makes sense. Any questions on that topic? And I do think there was a budgetary increase for maintenance, but I don't know if I can't tell you the amount or anything like that. But that was one of our asks, was to increase the maintenance line item for various infrastructure. And so, Ben, do you know, am I missing anything? Any other important parts on that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, our leadership in our department is aware of. There's a lot of unmet needs, especially with active transportation investment and maintenance. So those have been communicated to council, and it's just kind of a situation where there's some difficult trade-offs that need to be made, and that's definitely above my pay grade a little bit. But those have been communicated. But in the future, any committee support to get those initiatives heard is definitely welcomed.
Cool, thank you. Next update is on the letter we approved and submitted over to the county commissioners related to the Forward 2045 comprehensive plan. If you recall, that was a plan that had been worked on for a year or 2 years, was I think formally adopted by the city by now. The county, as my understanding, is just waiting on a few odds and ends clarifications, not related to anything we were advocating for in our letter per se. We just were saying we support this comprehensive plan. And so there's a little bit of behind the scenes work over there, and then I think they're going to probably adopt it. So our letter was received, and hopefully they will adopt that soon because it's a both city county plan. Ben, again, anything on that?
No, I think they're on track to approve the comprehensive plan. I think they were waiting on another study to kind of be completed on industrial development. So, but I think that the committee's support definitely helps.
And Lisa, I don't know if you were involved in any of that. There was a lot of public outreach on that comprehensive plan, but and Carol will probably bring it up, but it's a large, big, awesome document that's kind of a long range plan. Where does the city county want to be in 2045? And how do we get there? And there was a lot of public input over, like I said, the span of a year or two is a big deal. So getting it adopted is important. And then, in my opinion, applying pressure to make the things in that plan a reality is another effort. So I'll maybe shoot you a link with that, or you can just Google 2045 Winston-Salem. But it's a pretty neat document, and I think it does reflect a lot of the values we all share about active transportation and safety and sustainability. So thank you, Ben, for adding that. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let Ben talk about the bicycle-friendly community application process update.
Yeah, so we were going to submit an application for renewal. It's a 4 or 5 year renewal. I can't remember now. This June. But we were able to do a 1 year extension of our current status. So we currently have bronze status as a bicycle friendly community. So now we'll be looking at applying again next June. So that gives us some more time for active projects to wrap up and just help us put our best foot forward with our future application. And also, I think it gives us the committee a chance to do a little bit more outreach and for needs that they want to see within the application and highlighting strengths and weaknesses, and also getting like business support. There's also a bicycle friendly business designation that is kind of part of that application. I think it just gives us a little more flexibility to delay a year and keep our current status.
Hey, Ben, this is John. When we apply for this, do we apply for a specific level, or is the level assigned after the application?
It's assigned after the application based on their criteria. So it's, based on infrastructure, based on your policies. There's a lot of different factors. And then you put your best foot forward basically and see what you get.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, and I will say it's it's my understanding they have adjusted the criteria for their levels. So there's unfortunately, there's a potential we might not even meet the new bronze level. Hopefully we do, right? But the standard we met the last time we applied has got more criteria, and if we didn't rise to that new level, we might not even maintain the bronze level. But I appreciate this extension. As Ben said, there's a lot of great stuff happening. And when those things are completed, we can say, hey, we're doing these things. But there's also a lot of community work that can be done. And I believe we are going to be focusing on this in our next meeting in July, kind of making that a topic for all of us to discuss. Look at the application. What does it include? How can we engage with community partners to increase our score or whatever? So I think it'll be a good thing overall. And some of these things take time. Like if you want to become a bicycle friendly business, like it takes a little bit to get that in order. But if we could get, 2 universities and 5 businesses and a repair stand here and a program started there between now and next June, that would significantly improve our chances of getting a good rating. So
Is that designation through the League of American Bicyclists?
yes,
Okay.
it is. Yes, thank you. Good clarification. Yes. All right, thanks, Cynthia. Yes, and that's been around for a long time, and we definitely want to stay on there and not drop off. But
Yeah, but Amy, as you're saying, with communities as a whole across the country, becoming more bike friendly slowly, maybe, the bar does kind of keep getting raised. So I think that's why the extension will be nice for us, which will have, multi-use path completed and maybe some other smaller projects that'll help us compete.
Great. And you all can research on your own between now and then. There is a fact sheet on Winston-Salem. If you just Google League of American Bicyclists, Bicycle Friendly Community, Winston-Salem, there's like a 1 or 2 pager document that says how we fall based on our last application. And you can kind of see the types of information they're looking for. But we will dive deeper into this in a future meeting. So I look forward to dealing with that. Ryan?
In general, joining up with the League of American Bicyclists, they're great. They give you like a monthly magazine with a lot of information. If y'all haven't looked them up, definitely come up, because I'm a member for both business and personal individuals. I really like it.
Yeah, and they do a lot of national advocacy as well in Capitol Hill. So it's an important organization if you're interested in joining. Thank you, Ryan. All right, back to you, John. If you can provide a TPO 2050 transportation plan update.
Sure. I'm kind of representing on the committee there. And so I'll just give you a little bit back or where we are in the schedule. They've already done all the community engagement, gathered all the existing conditions. They're in the modeling phase now, where, for example, they're coming up with the transportation, travel demand, etc. So on the community engagement, they did an online survey. They had 567 participants. Then they have about 30 stakeholder interviews they did. And their basically top goals were safety, travel options, maintenance, and a focus on accessibility. And I guess we were told that the 2050 is a little more focused on multimodal, smart growth, and healthy communities than the 2045. So we'll see. So they're due to have the final sometime in the fall. They're actually behind because they had some problems with the modeling development. But once they get that squared away, they're going to do the prioritization, because this particular plan is physically, I can't say the word, physically constrained. And then they'll develop all the new plan with the priority projects. So the draft is due to come out sometime, maybe late July, with the final a little bit later in the fall.
Thank you, Greg. I'm putting the link in the chat. Can you just make sure that that is the correct one that we are referencing? It does say 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Yeah, that's it. This is the Metropolitan
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Transportation Plan. Yes, that's right.
And that's got some good information if y'all check out that website, because if you scroll down, it's got the process and lots of links and stuff. So excited that work is underway, and I do hope they will look at multimodal and complete streets.
Well, that was the idea.
Any questions on that one? Okay. Moving on, Michael Hosey, you were involved in a ton of bike events last month for Bike Month. If you want to give any highlights, please feel free. I don't know if your internet's going to work, but we can give it a try. So far, you're frozen, so that's not a good sign for me.
It was fun. May was fun.
I heard that. Yes, May was
Yeah.
fun. I know I can share. National Cycling Center partnered with Collidium to do a couple events. I know Ryan, you were there. Do you want to speak to one or both of those that you partnered on?
I helped with both. Michael was pretty much the pretty face doing all the fun stuff there, though. We got to do the helmet watermelon drop, where we put some helmets on the watermelon, drop them in front of the kids. Sprayed them a couple times. The kids' takeaway was 4 helmets helped the most. Not sure if that was the most important takeaway, but at least know that helmets kind of worked. But it was a pretty good time. We had the smoothie, the bicycle smoothie machine was there. We had there's a bunch going on there. There's just a bunch. I'm very excited to see what happens next year, because this was kind of the Julie Audi type of event this year, but next year I'm real excited for.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was a great, I don't want to say prototype, but like you said, a first run, and Collidium does tons of programming all the time, all year round. Yes, Richard came out and PEA was a part of that. So great collaboration, seemed like. And then we had the Gears and Guitars with the bike races, the fondos, the concerts. Seemed like that was great. As always, lots of exciting things happening. We had the Ride of Silence that happened middle of the month. That was pretty great turnout, 40, 50 people, I think. We had police escort. We actually had 6 motorcycles this time. I guess they were doing some training, so we got extra PD there. But that's always a nice, somber solidarity ride, but great to have people come out and participate. The weather was perfect. Are there any other Bike Month activities that happened? I can't think of. I think Beers and Gears did a taco ride and a bike packing trip in May as well, which were both well attended and fun.
Yeah, the Cycle Recycle group has been giving away some bicycles and bike helmets to a couple different elementary, and I don't know if a middle school, but I know at least 1 or 2 elementary schools. So they continue to do that every spring. Chester does a really good job with organizing that and working with school officials to set up those programs to donate bikes and helmets to the school kids. So every year they're super excited about that, and it's so much fun to see them receive those bikes.
And we should clarify, these aren't brand new out of the box bikes. These are,
that's correct.
They get donated and fixed up, and
yeah, there's a fairly extensive volunteer team that comes in almost weekly to work on the bikes and repair them, and they've got hundreds and hundreds of bikes now that they're really running out of room, and I think they're looking for maybe a larger, better space to store all those bikes and to do the repairs. But yeah, they receive a lot of them from different organizations. They get bikes that have been gently used, in some cases not so gently used, but they will go through them and try to salvage what they can. And then some of the bikes are just beyond repair, and they have to be literally be recycled into the metal recycling place, which is something I try to help out with a little bit. But I'm very proud to be part of that group to give up bikes away to the school kids, and the helmets too. Very important.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Michael's put a bunch of other stuff in the chat. Thank you. Looks like multiple bicycle safety education sessions at schools. Forba, the Forsyth Off-Road Bicycle Association, also did a grand opening with the city for a Dragon's Lair, it's called, mountain bike trails for kids. There's the Dragon's Belly and the Dragon's Tooth. So it's super beginner, like little kids on balance bikes, and then other kind of just normal beginner trail there added. So, and that is the first sanctioned mountain bike trails that were built with community organization and the city in the history of Winston-Salem. Everything else has been done by individual groups with varying levels of permission or like don't ask, don't tell type behavior. So that was a big thing for our city. Very excited to have that partnership. And there's more work going on the north side of the Salem Lake property as well on mountain bike trails. So, and then Cycling Heals Vets Connect, that's a monthly thing that Hosey is part of and helps facilitate second Tuesday of every month at Salem Lake. That's open to everybody. There's a lot of veterans that attend. I think from all over the state, they come to walk or to bike. Do they do paddling or anything water-wise? Fishing? I think they do fishing, don't they? But anyways, it's a great time for veterans to come, but then also just non-vets, any other person to just come and hang out and do some outdoor recreation and socializing. You know, sometimes folks can get stuck at home or in our challenges, and so it's just great to have opportunities for people to come out and be together. So not the focus, but they do fishing. So if anybody ever wants to go and walk or bike on a second Tuesday, you can get with Michael. There's an email distribution list where they send reminders a day or two before. So yeah, great. Lots of stuff happening. I mean, I think there's lots of cool bike things happening and walking and kids stuff. Kudos to everybody who helps make those happen. May is always a bigger month because it's bike month, but is there any other events anybody wanted to touch on? Yeah, Ride Like a Fish every Monday. I think Wise Man also does a ride. There's a couple bike shops that do rides, so. Okay, and then we just got a few more minutes left. If we want to do a round robin with the work group, John, I'll point to you. Is there anything else big coming out of your, we've already heard from you on a couple topics. Is there anything else? Okay. Appreciate all your diligence there. I don't know, Hosey, if there was anything else coming out of the education and outreach. You guys coordinated for us to have that presentation at last month's BPAMIC meeting. And then I know there's ongoing work about bicycle safety in the schools, but if you have anything else to add, or others from that committee. I don't know who else is in that one. That's on the call. Oh, and I see Maddie joined. Hi, Maddie. We'll see if he puts anything in the chat. That's okay. Great. And then on the advocacy and partnership group, I've been talking a lot. Sarah, do you want to share any updates on what we've been working on? Not to put you on the spot, but. She's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know that I have any updates other than we were in the midst of scheduling things, and we would send out when those meetings would be scheduled.
Yes, I think we shared with you all the engagement kind of guideline document that we're hoping to use in these meetings with our city council. And we'll be asking folks to sign up to have a quick meeting with council. It's 3 questions. We're really just trying to have a listening session and learn where they at, what are they excited about, whatever. So more to come on that.
And it would be dependent on your ward, where you live.
Yeah, we definitely want representation. If you live in that ward, we want you to speak to your council member, but we don't have full representation across our committee. So there will be some council members that will just be other folks, and I think some of us have connections with different council members from different working relationships and whatnot. So if there's someone you know, maybe you don't live in their ward, but you know them and have a connection, maybe you're good for that meeting. So I think that's it. We've got listed a couple upcoming events on the agenda. Next month's another virtual meeting. Carol should be back, thankfully. Hopefully she'll have great energy and inspiration from her travels. Is there anything else anybody wanted to share or ask or?
Amy, I have one more.
Yep.
Michael got us a bike that our WISTA will be using for allowing people to test the bike racks and the buses with. So we'll be taking that to an event with the Marvin United Methodist Church here in a few weeks, but that will be a bike that WISTA hangs on to and uses for future events as well.
That's awesome.
So thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I know that's a bit of, I had a lot of anxiety the first time I was going to put my bike on the bus. I was like, oh my God, can I do it? Everyone's going to be watching me. I'm going to be holding people up. So that's really great if we can let people have practice. Ryan, were you going to add something?
I'm not sure if anybody noticed, but it looks like we finally got a crosswalk parking on Academy on the Trollway. Looks like we finally, with the repaving and repainting and all that, we got a crosswalk. I don't think it's the right painting. I thought it was supposed to be the rectangles, but we do have a marker there, which is very nice because that has been a point of contention on that crosswalk on that Trollway.
Excellent. Great. Super. Anything else from y'all? Otherwise, we're ending early, so that's great. Got through a lot of stuff. Well, I appreciate. Oh,
You did a good job. No, I was going to say you did a good job, Amy, of chairing the meeting. You did an excellent job.
well, Carol and Ben do a good job of getting everything prepped, so appreciate that. But
Kudos to Ben too. Yes.
yes.
Thanks, Greg.
All
Well, I'm
right, well,
excited to be part of the committee, so thank you for welcoming me.
yes, welcome, Lisa. We're excited, and I'm sure Carol will tell you she would love you to be part of one of our 3 working groups or multiple, depending on what you want to do. So she'll tell you more about those, and you can let us know where you have some interest. But if we don't see each other for other reasons, we'll see you guys next month for our next meeting.
Okay.
Everybody take care.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
All right.